Because they like to.
Yeah, but no, it was good people. But what
was
trip?
Click up.
I heard. Yep. Okay. I look like choking, but
all right. So we've gotten through college. We've graduated. Do you have a plan coming out of school?
0 plans.
Okay, great. Tell us about those.
0.
Tell about the non-plans.
There were 0 plans.
How did you
nothing
okay?
to tell.
Our first guest is someone who is very near and dear to me, not only because she helps me out with everything that goes on in my life, but she's also my baby sister and a very well-established young woman in the advertising space. Welcome, Ashley Johnson.
Yeah, Ashley. Like that, we were like in a live audience. That's how it would sound, just so that you would know.
It would go, but
she's a hater, but it's okay. It's okay. This is how we live.
All right. Here we are. We're in your space, in your apartment in New York. But we grew up where?
We grew up in Germantown, Maryland. So super small town in Montgomery County. That's usually my go-to route is like, I lived in Moco. People may or may not know, right. But like better than Germantown, but very small. DMV, stand up. Right. It is. Very small town, very diverse town. We're actually like one of the top 10 diverse cities in the nation.
Oh, that's not what I thought you were about to say. I thought you were supposed to say expensive.
No. The most diverse, one of the most diverse cities in the nation, which is great because it exposed us to a lot of different people doing a lot of different things. And, you know, kind of prepared us for like the real world, especially here in New York.
Yeah.
So I spent my K through 12 there, enjoyed it. Don't want to move back ever, but it was a great place to grow up. So, you know, we're talking about getting into careers and things, and I know everyone kind of starts thinking about it like 11th grade, 12th grade. And for me, like, you know, honestly, I just wasn't thinking about exactly what I was going to do. I knew I had to go to college. Like,
right.
It wasn't like not even a pressure, but just like, that's what you do. You know, you go through K through 12, and then you go to college. So
minimum community college.
Yeah, minimum
something.
Like our parents are not gonna be like, okay, you don't got to go to college, but you can sit in the house. So it's like community college or college, whatever it is that, you know, you want to do, go ahead and go for it. So in college, you know, I mean, in high school, I was like, you know, I think I want to become a chemist. Don't ask me why.
Right.
I was good at math and science was interesting. And I was like, okay, this sounds like this could be a thing.
From somewhere in there. Yeah. Because it could have gone several different ways.
Yeah. Chemistry was it.
We got to chemistry.
Then I took chemistry class and I was like, no.
No, that's going to be a no.
Not for me. So then it's like, you know, I got to figure it out. Right. But, you know, luckily enough, we were in a very blessed position where, you know, we didn't have to work. She chose to work. I did not.
Wanted the money.
As if our parents wasn't going to give it to us. But neither here nor there. That's another story for another time. But, you know, I didn't have to find a job. So I wasn't really, like, job just wasn't a thing in my mind. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a job, doing something.
Right.
So, and then, you know, I was like, okay, now it's time to look at schools. And of course, you have to put in a major for a lot of these schools. And I'm still figuring it out. But one day I'm sitting at our dad's job and he had to pick up something. I'm in the car listening to the radio and someone comes on talking about, you know, being a publicist and what they do. And I hear celebrity and being at the events and being the voice of them and all these things. And I'm like, sounds cool.
Right.
This sounds actually amazing.
So there were no mentors per se. There was just like an idea that you heard and it just actually just felt like, yes, that feels right.
That feels right. And it's still funny to me because I'm not like, I'm what they call it, introverted extrovert or vice versa, whatever it is. So like, you know, if I don't got to be around people, I'm okay with that. And having to like, knowing what a publicist is now for sure, it's like having to.
That was a shocker.
Like be in front of people and talk.
You want to be a what?
Yeah, but it sounded good. It sounded good.
Okay.
So once I made that decision.
To no one.
I'm talking to you right now. Here.
No one knew.
Okay. So, you know, when I was applying to colleges, now that I knew I would become a publicist, I'm, you know, looking for schools that, you know, have great communication schools because that's what it falls underneath.
But even there, was there any way, did you do any due diligence prior to saying, okay, I would need these type of courses to be a publicist? Or you looked at the site or you looked at like whatever the brochure was and says, you know, people who do this can do this?
No, you'd Google top schools for public relations, top schools.
Just making sure I had contacts.
Yeah, that's how I did it. I just, Googled or whatever it was, however many years ago.
Yeah.
Searched online, like top
I
schools.
I probably did something similar when I was trying to figure out school, because where we grew up, there wasn't a lot of that conversation for those type of jobs.
Right.
So it was really like pulling it from the mud and like putting it together, figuring out how to make this wispy, whimsical dream.
So I'm just Googling, and then of course, like you're having schools that are sending out their pamphlets and things like that. So, and honestly, like I didn't apply to any place that didn't send me something because I just didn't even know. There's so many schools and all of them are great. Not all of them, but you know what I'm saying? So it's like, if I got something in the mail and I was like, this looks like a good school.
That's where I'm going to apply.
Yeah. So that was like kind of first, we were like taking these pamphlets and things and searching to see like, do they have good communication schools?
Right.
And something that we've talked about in the past is about, like, you went into fashion design, I went into public relations, and how our parents kind of like, were they for it? Were they against it? Because I know a lot of times.
I think we were lucky. We had supportive parents, and there was no conversation of, do something else first.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, there was that for you. Well, for me, it's like, she kind of broke the mold. Like, I'm doing fashion design. They were cool with that because she was talented. Like, she had a talent, wasn't coming out of anywhere.
I think also because they didn't really know.
They were going to get her out the house.
And they didn't have enough information to speak for it or against it. So they're like, okay.
They also knew that you had talent. But for me, for public relations, like I didn't have any like public speaking or anything like that. So our dad is a computer engineer. He's like, look, well, you can always safe bet, get into, you're good at math, you're good at that type of thing. Like become an engineer and then like get that degree. And then once you graduate, you can, if you want to do be a publicist or whatever else you want to do, like you can do it then. But if it doesn't work out, then you'll have engineering to fall back on. And I'm just like, no, because I know me. And I'm like to claim that I've been a very self-aware person for the majority of my life. Come on, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I literally had an itch in my nose.
Don't do that. Okay. So I'm gonna see how self-aware I am when she asks for advice.
See,
okay.
This is the problem.
But back to the story. Meaning that, like, I know that if I were to go to school for engineering, and I would get a good, by the grace of God, get a good job afterwards and make good money, it was going to be hard for me to personally switch because I'm like, okay, it's safe. It's, if I switch now, I may have to take a pay cut and all these things. So I know that for me, like, I'm not very risky.
Right.
So if I knew if I got into that field, I was going to be stuck in it because that's just what I do. So I was like, nope, I'm going to go, become a publicist. And they were like, okay, great. So I ended up getting into Penn State, which is the best school in the world. We are Penn State. I heard you out there. And I was in their College of Communications, preparing to be a publicist.
Okay. So you get to college, you get to your first class that is supposed to be in the curriculum for being a publicist. Are you excited at this point, or are you like, what did I do?
No, I'm still excied. I'm still excited.
But do you have any formal knowledge? You still don't have any knowledge.
No, because
we just in there.
You know that your first 2 years are like gen ed. So I'm here out here taking astrology 100 and like, things like that. So at least Penn State, the way it was set up at the time was like, your second half of your schooling term is like when you start getting into your actual major classes.
That's pretty standard.
That are smaller set.
Standard.
So, first 2 years I'm kicking it. I'm like, I have a couple communication classes like creative writing and things like that. So nothing that's specific to public relations, but, getting you into field, like learning media type of thing. Okay. So then I get into my core classes and I have this one teacher and every day he starts class with like, do you like to write? Do you know how to write? And the first couple of days I'm like, And then at some point, I was like, yo, I really...
That's it. The less I like it.
The less I like it. I don't like to write. I don't like to write. We're writing like news stories. You are
triggering me, sir.
Right. I'm writing news stories now. I'm like, am I a journalist? Like, what is this? But, I'm just like, well, this is what it is, And, there's certain qualifications needed to get into public relations because it was such a popular
What kind
major.
Of qualifications?
So like for freshman year, starting out the bat, I think your first 3 semesters between freshman and sophomore year, you had to have at least a 3.33 to get into that specific major. Okay. So I'm like, I already did that work. Not saying I worked hard for it, but I had the grades and I was in there and it's like, I don't want to switch now and miss out on opportunities. So I'm like, I'm going to carry this degree out. I'm going to figure out what it is I can do with it. and make it work. And that's kind of how I pushed through college. I was like, okay, this is what I'm majoring. Maybe I don't like to write, but maybe there's different aspects or other things that I can do with it. Yeah, so I was just like, okay, I know I'm not going to become a publicist, but I'm going to use this degree to do something.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So we've gotten through college. We've graduated. Do you have a plan coming out of school?
0 plans.
Okay, great. Tell us about those.
0.
Tell about the non-plans.
There were 0 plans.
How did you, basically,
I know what you're
saying. Just want to know how we got from university to here we are. Mm-hmm. So like, for instance, what was your big break coming to, how did you get to New York, first and foremost? Why New York and not LA, London, whatever?
First off, you're talking LA, London. Those were far places.
That's far.
That was far. But, you know, I knew I did not want to go home because I was naively believing that like everything that had to do with any type of advertising and things like that was the government. Like I did have an internship between my junior and senior year of college working at NIH, which is the National Institute of Health. So as you know, that's very much government wise. I was working on, you know, as an intern on the communications team. So seeing the type of stuff that was going out. But that was my only job experience because I didn't have a job in high school. And I'm just like everything in DC.
So I feel like back then, everybody went and got a job, you know, working for the government. Majority of everybody. If you stayed, that's what you were doing. You were either working for the government, as somebody's dentist, supermarket.
Yeah, I mean, I think like
there wasn't at the time. Now it's such a.
I feel like there's probably definitely because I have friends that like you know went back to Maryland and had like non-government jobs in advertising, but I just didn't know. know. And in school, they were taking us to New York. Like I went to a job fair where they had like all the heavy hitters and agency world and brands and things like that. Because that's you know a lot of places are headquartered. So, you know, in my mind, that's where you go. So I graduated from school. My parents just think I'm going to come home because we've never had, I don't know if they had this much trust in me, but like, we just never had a conversation. They're like, wherever she goes, she's going to figure it out. She's probably going to come home for a little bit to figure out what it is she wants to do, like take like a real thought process on it. And then she'll figure out where she's going to go.
That wasn't offered to me.
Some people need a little more.
Oh no, I always knew I was ready. When it was time, I was ready. I always knew
she was been trying to get to New York. They were just like, let's bring it in. Let's make sure that.
Always known I was going to be out.
Well, yeah. I think everyone knew. But they just needed to, until they knew that she was ready. But anyways, but for me, they're just kind of like, So I was like, all right. So then luckily enough, I had 0 plans, but it works. But, you know, luckily enough, I had a sister that was already
hightailed it to New York.
In New York, you know, moving and grooving. How long was I
there at that point?
At least 7 years because we are 7 years apart.
Nobody asked you.
They don't know how old I am. I'm the younger sister. But yeah, she was already living in New York and she was like, hey, do you want to come to New York? And I was like, sure.
Absolutely.
And she had a friend that was working at Spike DB, which is Spike's ad agency at the time.
Right.
And they were looking for interns. So I think I like graduated. I went on vacation for like a week or two, came home for a couple of days. They were like, hey, can you come and interview for this internship? Bet. Go the interview. They're like, can you start? I think it was like a Monday it's like a Wednesday. And they were like, bet, can you start on the following Monday? So literally I called my mom, called my parents like, hey, so I'm moving to New York and I need to be there by Monday. I need to be back here by Monday. So literally I think I went home maybe the next day or that Friday, packed up as much stuff as I could. My parents had me back in New York by Sunday night. And then I started my internship. Yep.
That's the thing about New York, especially then, because I do feel like a lot of things have changed. Like everything is like, it's like slow. Then everything just starts happening. You have to be prepared at the drop of a dime.
They're like, can you start
pivot?
Can you start on Monday?
Available.
I'm like,
and the expectation is yes, like they're just asking you this as a courtesy.
All right, mind you, I have zero. I have the bag that I came with. I came down on Tuesday, had an interview on Wednesday. I'm moving to New York on Monday.
Yep.
So I had an internship. So my parents were, of course, like happy about that. They were happy, of course, that, you know, I'm with my sister. So, you know, that helps to have a place to stay knowing that, you know, I don't have any bills at the time. You know, I didn't have to look for a place to stay. Like, they've already been to her place. So they know the area is safe. She's already established herself. So, you know, it wasn't, you know, my mom does say, she was like, you know, I kind of kicked you out because I'm like, the longer you stay, the harder it's going to be for me to let you go. Like, we're going to be really, really empty nesters now. Like, our 2 girls are out of here. So she was like, when you were like, let's go, she was like, we need to get you out there immediately. Because the longer I have time to think about it, the more I'm going to be like, wait, is this... Because they never just saw me in New York, so it gives them time to question.
I don't think any of us did. And then I was just like, it makes total sense. That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Why not be here? And I'm here.
So that's how I made my way to this good old place, and I've never left. I'm still here, baby.
We still here. We in here. Okay, so we've made it to New York. Your first internship. What was your first like big break? In terms of like the first position that you got that really made you feel like you had established a career path? Like, how did you, is this something that you learned over time? Like, was it your dream, or again, it's just something that you fell into and kept falling into?
Yeah, I still don't have like I've yet to have that moment, let's say. I'm still figuring it out.
I mean, yeah, because
I still figured it out.
Are long. They're long journeys. So.
Like, I got to do this till I'm 65?
No, that's not what we want.
So I don't think there's been a moment necessarily where I feel like, I figured it out. I've kind of fallen into things like internship. I didn't do much work. Like, I was sitting around doing who knows what, but I was making sure I was being present in the room and learning learning about things and hearing what's going on and trying to understand how things kind of work.
Right.
And then from there, you know, once again, this girl right here, she has another friend that's working at Complex and they're looking for sales assistants. I have no clue what a sales assistant does, but I'm going to go for this interview. And I got the job. And this is great because I feel like, you know, I'm getting back into the vibe of like, I'm going to be around celebrities or working on things that celebrities are going to be a part of. Because that was, you know, what brought me to wanting to become a publicist.
Right.
And I'm in there and I'm working, all to realize that like, I don't know how to work.
It's a different thing. It's a real thing, folks.
Like, I don't know how to work. I'm going from
real thing.
An internship where they're not asking much of me.
Nothing.
They're really not. Like, and honestly,
cool.
I probably got the job because of her friend. Like, I didn't have no experience. So, you know, I'm in there doing what they asked. Click on this, file away this thing. I'm doing that. And I'm getting paid just enough to get me there and back.
Right.
But now I have a job and it's a real job and people are expecting things out of me. And that shift was harder than I thought. But the crazy part was I didn't even know that shift was happening until I was fired.
Right.
But I was there for like a whole year.
That's
and
good.
I just didn't, you know, hindsight's 2020. I can look back and be like, I just didn't know how to work.
Didn't know how to work.
Like, you know, when they say they need it now,
I definitely
they need
had
it now.
that experience.
Yeah, like people are expecting you to do it. Like, there's no reason why you should be eating
like I was killing it.
Eating your lunch when you have a whole list of things, like going out, walking, taking 30-minute lunches, walking around when I have a shit ton list of things to do. And then I'm looking at the clock at 6 o'clock, like, all right, it's time for me to go. So like, I didn't understand how to work. And, you know, fortunately, unfortunate. Yeah. You know, I got fired from my first job ever. And of course, everybody gets fired. Everybody needs to get fired. And everybody's heart needs to be broken. It was broke.
Because that does really jolt you into like being very introspective about work ethic. Like if you didn't have a work ethic then, that experience definitely first makes you question your work ethic and then really try to set rules so that doesn't happen again for yourself personally. Situations happen at jobs for various reasons, but definitely when it's like related to work ethic, I feel like getting fired is integral. Like you have to know that loss and then you have to basically, some places won't even break it down for you, but you have to then be able to, somebody break it down to you and say, oh, well, you know, you could have did this or you didn't do this. Some jobs do that for you. Some just like, get the hell out.
And for me, like they didn't necessarily like tell me why. They're just like, you know, we no longer need you. And I was like, okay. But I knew that I never wanted to have that feeling again.
Right.
I don't know if it was performance based. I don't know if it was because I wasn't because of something specific, but I knew that moving forward, whatever job I have until this day, like I'm going to make sure that if I get fired, it's not because I didn't do it. Because I never want to feel that way. I want somebody to be like, hey, like we're going through layoffs because of this and we had to cut you. Like you've been great, but you know, these are things that had to happen. So that's the biggest lesson I learned there. It's like, one, you have to really work because people, you know, I'll say it all the time. Like, I go from calling, Professor so-and-so to like Edgar. Edgar's my boss. Like, there's no Mr. and Mrs. Nope. Like, they're looking at you as your peer.
On the same plane, baby. Right. And we will cut you down as soon as we can.
Right. But it was another opportunity just to see, like, it was helpful for me to acclimate myself to New York because there were events and there were things. And I had friends that came from college and things that lived in New York. So being able to like be my own person outside of Shaina's little sister, because at this point, everything I've had has come from her, which I was very blessed to have, and very thankful to this day that she was able to put me, get me into the door.
Sure.
But, it also gave me the opportunity to kind of like spread my wings and learn where different things are and who's doing this and who's in the industry and who's hot and who's not, and all these things that, I'm like picking up on and, getting fancy out here in New York and meeting people and doing all these other things that definitely helped me continue to grow as a person within my job and outside of it.
I think you made more of a social life for yourself than I did moving out here. Like, and she's not the social person.
I can be though.
But you established, I guess I've always kind of been a lone wolf in a lot of ways, but you established like community very early on, which I think is very, very important for a lot of people in order to stay in New York and stay in the field that you're in, because it's very challenging to get into New York, but then staying in New York. So you're here and now you have to like figure out how to say you definitely need some sort of community, big or small, but you're really good at that. Like having your core, you have like several pods of community, which is great for networking.
Right. Most people and most of my pods get along with each other, which is also great.
That's good.
So
okay.
So I get fired.
We get canned. All right. Now catch us up to the last 3 spots that you've been at.
So between, firing and where I'm at now, I had, a stint at Condé Nast, which was like Vogue, GQ, Details, those type of things.
She's so fancy.
Great.
She's so fancy.
Spent like 8 or 9 months there. And then from there, I had 2 different jobs at 2 different agencies, which was great because now, like, let's say Condé Nast, for example, or Complex as well, I'm working with these agencies who are in between us and then the actual client, like your Nikes and whoever else. So now I'm working on the agency side, working directly with clients. So I was working on Miralax and Phillips, so laxatives, and I did Uncle Ben's rice, so, just taught me how those things all work together, like, timeline wise. Okay, when they reach out to us for this, they're asking because of this. Right. So it was a great experience to have just to like figure out how things work. So that's what I learned on the agency side. And then I stayed at these 2 agencies for probably like 2 years altogether. And then I ended up at Washington Post. So doing something similar to what I was doing at Complex and Condé Nast. But now it's like a little more responsibilities. One of those like entry-level jobs that you need like 5 or 6 years of experience.
Like, what is like before entry? If you need 5 to 6 years to entry level, what is before? They just be making
they just don't hire you. They just don't hire you. It's okay. But they paid.
They want somebody else to hire you.
But they
first.
paid. I will say they paid for those years. It wasn't like an entry level job where it's like, oh, we're coming in $30K. Like it was, okay. They paid you for it, but like you still like it was the lowest of the jobs you could have in the company as far as my division. But they paid for it. You need the experience to have it.
Way better.
So yeah, I was at the Washington Post for a year and some change. So if you're keeping tally here, I've worked at like 6 places in like 6 years.
But okay, pause. Let's talk about that for a second. It wasn't because you were just getting cut. You were making very like specific and strategic decisions. Why?
So I realized that like, we're in different times here. Companies are treating employees differently, not bad, just differently. So if you take an example, our dad, he worked at the same company for like 30 years to the point that like the company name was changing and he was still there.
Right.
And at the time or during his time, like, I feel like, if you were a quality worker, like they paid you for it. So if you're promoting you getting a 30K, 40K, bump with your promotions, or they're giving you, incentivizing you to stay. Basically, they're like, we have good talent that knows the business. Let's do what we need to do to keep them there.
Grooming back then. Right. They would groom you and invest in you.
Right. And what I started to realize is that now it's not like that. I think it's a little bit of our generation, millennials, I think that's what we are, and a little bit of the way companies are now treating their employees. Like, for example, if I'm at a job and I'm ready to be promoted, they're only offering me $10K, which, once taxes cut off, that's
not a promotion. Hello.
Maybe $200 a month, maybe $100 more a month.
Heads and VPs that are approving budgets and salaries, $10K is not a promotion. It's barely a bonus. And now back to you.
Right. So they're only giving $10K, but if someone else were to come in from outside, they're going to get $30K more than me. So once I started realizing that, I'm like, why am I sitting here being loyal to someone who is going to treat somebody coming from the outside rather than internally? I become the outside person.
I'm going to be the outside.
So I would, go for an interview and, get the interview. And at the time, it wasn't illegal to ask how much you made before. Now it is in New York. They would ask me how much I make. So let's say I was making
Isn't that
50.
Crazy? What does it matter? What does it matter? What I used to make. There's a reason why I'm not.
Well, that's why it's illegal now, because people start to lowball people. But let's say I was making $50K at one place and I go on this interview and they ask me how much I make. I'm already telling them I'm making 65. So I'm already $15K more than. So even if they came in at 65, like, this position only 65, I'm coming out with $15K more.
Right.
But I'm going to say I make 65, but I want 75. So now we're talking about $25K now that if they, go ahead and give me, I've already positioned myself in a better place. So I started to do
the
that.
burger and the fries.
Exactly. So so that's how I was kind of moving. I'm like, and at that time, once again, I still didn't know what it is I wanted to do. I hadn't fallen into a place where I'm like, okay, even if I don't like the work that I'm doing, at least I like the company that I worked at. So I did that for a very long time. The first 9 years of my career. And then I landed at Billboard.
And what were you doing at Billboard?
So I was a digital account manager, and
what
similar
is
to the role
account
of what I have now. So basically, like when advertisers or brands want to come in and they want to advertise on your website. So we all go to websites, you see the ads, whether it be like before the video you see on YouTube, or you just digital banners that are on these sites. Agencies and the clients come to us and said, hey, we have X amount of budget. We're trying to reach music lovers, or we're trying to reach whatever it is. Tell us how we can spend our money. And basically they give us a request for proposal. We take that proposal, look at, all the things that they're trying to do. And then we basically submit to them back a plan and a deck or presentation that breaks out like, for this amount of money, we can do X, Y, and Z for you. This is how it's going to meet the needs of your brief.
Okay.
And hopefully, they take it back, they present it to whoever they have to present it to, and then hopefully they'll give us the money to do it.
Gotcha.
And that's my job to just make sure whatever we promise them gets executed so that, at the end of the day, we get money and hopefully like a renewal.
Okay.
So that's what an account manager does in my space and field. So so at Billboard, it was great, getting back into that entertainment, celebrity life. But most important piece that kept me there was that I had a Black woman boss, female boss.
That's super important.
Which is the first time ever.
Rare. I've never even had, and you would think in my industry, somebody, anybody. Okay. So
I have, an amazing boss, and not that she was just, great to me because I'm Black and a female as well, but like she was just a great manager overall. And like we became homegirls. So like, everybody and the company, to be fair, is very, 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 very diverse. So it wasn't even like, my non-Black colleagues are like, stush or like don't know what's happening. Like they're down, they know what's happening, but it's something about having someone be able to relate to you on a daily basis. Like when somebody says something crazy on a call, to be able to call me afterwards and be like, girl, were you listening to me?
You can just be exactly who you are, and you don't have to minimize what you're feeling or what you're thinking because of that cultural gap.
And another big piece of it is like, there was no crabs in the barrel. She was like, and like I said, even if I was non-Black, like she's just a person that helps you out. But because I was Black too, she's like, let's figure out how we're going to get you
furthest we can get you.
Right. So like if there was opportunities to do things outside of my job, which I got to do a lot, like outside of my day to day, like she would advocate to be like, yeah, send Ashley, like let her do that. Like, oh, you guys need extra hands? Let her do that. So I can just get experience of learning different teams and things like that. Her name is Shamika Frank.
Shout out to Shamika.
And she's still a boss over there. So for me, it was a great growing experience to just have somebody that was super supportive of me. Because a lot of times, you go to these places and people they're only trying to nurture you to stay with the company rather than nurturing you as a overall well person. Because at the end of the day, if you're an overall well person, you're going to do great at your job. Right. So it's like she understood that and was like nurturing to all of us. Like, yes, of course, I want to nurture you enough so that you stay here because hopefully you're a good person.
That's rare though. I wonder how she got to be that way. Like,
I think the bigger question is why people aren't that way. How do people get the other way? Like, that's what boggles my mind. Like, 'cause I'm like, if I ever get in space, stay at a job long enough to become a manager, like, what is the trigger that makes somebody, I feel like it's easier to be authentic and natural rather than be nasty and holding people down. So she was just the best manager that I had.
People like that, it's just in them. Like, it's just, and the power gives them license to be assholes. I
don't know.
I think seriously, I think maybe it's like, if you are a good person, genuinely, authentically, then that's gonna,
I don't know, because I feel like some people you fall into. It's kind of like
people are assholes.
It's like she's negative Nancy.
No.
But I think once you get into a certain role, and if everybody around you is acting a certain type of way, like, and you're not, like, you might fail in that situation because everybody else is so hardcore and assholes, and they're keeping their employees in check by being a little bit more tough than they need to be. And you're like, the soft, quote unquote, soft one, you kind of fall into it. I think, yes, there are some assholes out there, but I think a lot of the time, it just kind of, you fall into it. Like, or you in the mindset of, well, this is how I was treated, therefore I need to treat you like that. But I say all that to say, like, Shamika was just overall great, and having someone that looked like me, that I reported into every day, was very much helpful in my growth. And I think that's Billboard is where I learned the most about myself. As far as like what I could do, and just having somebody trust me and trust the work that I was doing, and, showing me the way, and also just letting me have opportunities that I may not have had if I didn't have a manager that was so in tune with who I was.
Right.
So I stayed there the longest. I was there for 3 years, y'all. 3 whole years. So up to this point, I've been like a year and I get the itch. So
to promote herself.
I was out here promoting
herself.
I'm like, y'all not gonna do it? Bet I'm finna go.
Run me my money.
And,
now I'm out.
And it used to be like, oh, job hopping, it doesn't look good. But I'm like, these people still hiring me.
Promotions.
So until I get to a place where I literally just can't get no jobs,
right?
Then I'll stop.
Going backwards.
So so I spent a good time at Billboard, and it was great. The company got acquired, and, they moved me around. So I didn't have Shamika as my boss anymore. Technically on paper, I didn't have Shamika as my boss, and I was being moved to another team, and was not doing anything really that I didn't want to do. Like, it was a whole different job. And I was like, oh no, this is not going to work. Luckily enough, for 6 months, I was not on Shamika's team, but was still working with Shamika because my other team just couldn't figure out what it is that I was supposed to be doing.
Gotcha.
But it was my time to go. Like, I didn't get promoted or any raises, and not because I wasn't, apt to get them. Every time something happened, we had like 2 separate layoffs when I was like in the position to get promoted, and we had layoffs, and then we got acquired by a different company, and I get moved to a different team. So like a lot of just internal shit.
Yeah, it was just time for you to go.
Prevented me.
It was time for you to transition into the next big thing.
Right. So, it's like, it's my time to go. I feel like I gave Billboard all I had.
Gave you my all.
Like 2 years plus all, and I was blessed enough to get a position at Twitter.
Hey!
And I was like, this is what
we all came up. We are at the Twitter now. Y'all couldn't tell us nothing in the family group chat because we had one at the Twitter.
Yeah, and I've never,
Twitter, when it was Twitter.
I've never had like, people have like dream jobs and dream companies, and I've never had dream jobs. Like, I've had places, I'm always looking at like, that'll be cool to work at. This is the place to be. So anytime I'm starting a new job, like, I'm always thinking about what's going to be next. Not necessarily, maybe not in 8 months or a year, maybe 10 years down the line, but just keeping a rolling list of like where I would want to work, so that if and when I see an opportunity come up, because I still be on LinkedIn all the time, because you got to know what's out there. Yep. Or like, if it's, I get to the point where I want to leave, I'm like, I always have at least a top 5 places where I'm like, this is where I'm going to start. Yep. So Twitter for me, it was never a dream place. It's always that would be cool.
Really cool.
But I never could dream that I would be somebody that they would pick, because, you always hear like, it's so hard to get into. Everyone's super smart and everyone's super talented. And I had applied and years over years. Didn't hear nothing back. And then finally,
my time came,
and I get an interview. Matter of fact, I get 2 interviews with 2 different teams. And I'm like, oh, can I even do this? Like, am I gonna cancel myself out from here or there?
Nope.
But I stuck with the process.
Listen, they interviewing multiple people. I'm interviewing multiple companies.
Exactly.
2 of the jobs just so happen to be yours.
So I got the job and it was great, like it was everything that they said. Like at first, like, you have all these orientations and meetings and trainings and everyone's just like, I love it here. And I'm just like, are y'all sipping the Kool-Aid? Is it a cold? Like, is it really that nice?
Get out.
Right. And it was that. Like they hire, I think the biggest thing was that they hired good people.
Yeah.
And it's like, if they get even one whiff of bullshittery.
I wish everybody
yes, that's
was
a
like
word.
that.
Bullshittery.
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, they're not gonna hire you. Of course, people slip through the cracks, but for the most part,
there's always a bad.
There was good people.
Basket,
right?
Because they like to.
Yeah, but no, it was good people. The
what was trip
click up? I heard. Yep. Okay. That looked like choking, but
they make you want to do. So we're at Twitter.
We're at Twitter, and
everything is good.
Everything is good. But this is the first time in my career that I experienced imposter syndrome. And for those who don't know what that means, it's just basically like feeling like you don't belong there. Like there's some alternate reason why they hired you type of thing. Like not fitting in. I shouldn't be here. Why did they do? And this is my first time ever experienced that. Out of all these jobs I've had over all these years, this is the first time when I was like, what? And it's because of a couple things. One, like they told me off for like, it's a 6 months to a year learning curve. And I heard that, but I'm like, I'm gonna catch on easy.
Right.
And then like month 1, month 2 happened and it ain't clicking because like Twitter is its own beast as far as advertising is concerned. Like everything is run through Twitter, like all the programs and things that would kind of go across all my other jobs. Like I could take it from here to there. I just got to figure out how they use the system.
Right.
Twitter wasn't even using those systems. So I'm starting from baby scratch, basically. I just know the terms.
Baby scratch.
Baby scratch. Put down a list of bullshittery.
Baby scratch.
Yeah. And so, and then of course,
Scrabble player.
Talk about it. But, and everybody to me felt so smart, like everyone. So I'm just like.
Everybody's so talented. But you have to realize they've also been there.
Right. And so
they speak the language.
Right. And then in the past, like all my jobs is like you start your job and whatever project they give you, even though Shaina was working on the project before, as soon as I get to Shaina's like, here you go. Like, I don't want to work on this no more. It's yours. If you have questions, maybe reach out.
Ask your mama.
So, I'm so used to being in that environment where it's kind of like, here you go. Like
so
there's there's like little training.
They literally flip you the bird as they hand off.
It's like you're training, you're learning while doing.
Yeah.
There's no training phase, which I do like that because you can learn from your I'm a mistake person. If I sit through a training, 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to understand it. And whatever notes that you gave me and whatever notes I have, when I go to do it, it's not going to make sense. Work. So I do enjoy that, but because I was so conditioned to do that, this 6 months to a year learning curve made me feel like I wasn't picking up things fast enough.
Yeah.
But
you have to give yourself grace in a lot of these fields, but especially like these high pressure cooker type of jobs and industries or whatever. Like if you don't give yourself grace, like you're screwed because nobody else is going to give it to you. So you have to really remind yourself going in that this is new. This is a new something.
And people everyone I was talking to and meeting with, like, I always like to ask, like, what's some advice you have joining the company and joining the team I'm specifically on? And everyone kept saying, be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. And that goes back to just people being people in a job space. Like, be kind to yourself. There's a lot of information. You can find anything that you want here, like as far as information that you need, or somebody's going to know how to do it. But for you specifically, like, be kind to yourself, because if you're not, you will self-sabotage yourself. You will count yourself out, and then your work will start to show that.
And that's a real thing. That is definitely a real thing. You really start to believe at a certain point that you don't belong here. So your actions just start to naturally do that. You have to be very, very careful about what you're thinking about yourself at work.
Right. And then exactly what they said was going to happen. You know, they're like, one day it's going to click. And then it clicked. And I was like, aha, I get it. So now I can start pulling myself back to the Ashley or the AJ that I know and working. Like, I'm a quality worker. I do good work, you know, all these things.
Very strategic, very rational.
Very rational person. Going back to checking in with my direct reports and things like that. Like, hey, how am I doing? You know, and, you know, is there anything I could be doing better?
Right.
Like, going back to those type of things.
Those are important conversations. You have to really be brave to do them.
Right. Because if you wait until you're quarterly review
yes.
or your yearly review, however often your company decides to review you on it. And now you've been working wrong for the past year, and now they're ready to let go some people, and you haven't produced in over a year.
Or they want to leverage that so that they don't give you what bonus you deserve.
Right. So I've learned to just like be okay with asking, like, how am I doing? What could I be doing better? Where are areas that I'm doing well in? Because my boss at Twitter would say, like, I need to know your strengths and your weaknesses so that we can use your strengths to help your weaknesses. So if you're good at this, then we can figure out how to flip that to make you good at that. Mm-hmm. So like, that nurturing there with the good people was great.
I like that. That's a good philosophy.
Because you're not going to be strong in everything. Not at all. But you're going to have something that you're strong in that has qualities going to make you maybe not the best over here, but better than you were just by taking that same type of technique and putting it over here. Mm-hmm. So Twitter was working out great. Everything was cool. Then, as you guys probably heard, still see, we got bought by
that guy.
And it was cool in the beginning because there was going to be some positive things financially that would happen. But then, it turned for the worse when he didn't want to do it anymore. And then now we're, there's a whole lot of things happening. But, 6, 7, 8 months after the initial idea came through that he was going to come and take over the company, it finally started to come into fruition like in October. And it was probably the longest month of anybody that was working there then. And probably to people that are still, working there now.
Those poor people.
I mean, it's a choice. It was a choice. But, some people can't, move like others. So pray for them. But, it came down to the point where there was like big layoffs. I was blessed enough not to be affected by that specifically. Mm-hmm. But of course, as a company, it was very hard and it changed the way that we're working. I'm working in advertising. So any bad news that's happening at your company, whether it be Twitter or any company you're at.
You're the point person.
So, when you're working in advertising, any bad press for your company then affects brands wanting to advertise with you. Mm-hmm. So when you have a situation like Twitter was in, and trust and stuff is being tested with brands,
right?
We're having to answer to these brands and they're asking us what's happening. And I'm sitting there trying to figure out what's happening with my job and my life and all these things. And you're in a weird space because they're not asking us that. Like they see the headline that happened in the news that morning.
Whatever. But
I did have some clients that, I became close with over that year who like would reach out to like, hey, how you're doing? Or like we had a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting, whatever the cadence was, where they would start the meeting just saying like, hey, I know this is business, but we just want to make sure y'all are doing okay. Dope. But then you had other clients, it's like, so what does this mean for us? How are you going to rectify this for us? I'm like,
I might not even done for me lately.
I'm going to be like, I don't even know.
Even be here.
Right. You may send an email out tomorrow and you're going to get a bounce back. Like, it was really that type of situation. I got locked on my computer, y'all. I thought I was let go. I couldn't get in. I was like, oh, they got me. They tricked me. I'm out of here. But yeah, so I didn't get laid off, but I think it was like the following week, like, we were given the opportunity to leave. Basically, do you want to stay at Twitter 1.0 or do you want to leave?
What the hell is that? No, I don't want to stay here.
But it was like, as crazy as that situation was, it still was a hard decision because there was a lot going on during that time. So, you have, these big layoffs that are happening. Yeah. And like I said, in the past, like I always have like the next set of companies. So, my list was, of course, Facebook, Google, Amazon, TikTok, Snapchat, techie type places. But everyone's having layoffs at this time. I think Facebook ended up having layoffs like the following week or I think that Monday before the day we had to decide when to stay or leave. Mm-hmm. So like, that's knocking out a whole, and they're not going to be hiring anytime soon. Right. So you have all these, like, once again, all these tech layoffs happening. It's about to be Thanksgiving and Christmas. So no one's really going to be hiring. Everybody's
winding down.
Then, the beginning of the year, it's hard to get a job because people are just getting back in the groove and like, starting the interview process. Right. So, I'm like, what do I do? So what do I do? Mom, Dad, at the big age of 33, like, what should I do? Telling her, like, what should I do? And, I am thankful for them. But this was like the first time where I felt like in my career, I had to be an adult. And I say that because even though they were helpful in saying like what they would do or what they...
I'd be out that help.
what they would, but I'm not a risky person.
Right.
So I'm looking for...
It's a no-brainer.
Right. I'm like, I need stability. I need all these things. And at the end of the day, everyone's like, this is what I would probably do. But honestly, I don't know. Like, even the thing, like, this is a decision that you have to make. But whatever decision that you make, because, my parents have trusted, like, you'll figure it out. You always figure it out. And we'll support whichever way you go. Because I'm like, I can stay and have stability. I know I have a check and look for a job that way.
But
miserable. What's my mental going to be? Right.
And dealing with a person who just seems the way they seem.
Right.
Like, you don't know what's coming at you every day. How do you like be productive and be creative? And even though you're on like more of the business end, there's still like a certain level of creativity that you have to be able to pull things together. And working in an environment, it just really messes with your whole vibe. You can't function like that. Not well.
Yeah. So, talking in that day in the office, like I said, we had 36 hours to make a decision. So there was one full work day that we had to do that. Neither here nor there, because that's what happened. But I'm in the office and everybody's being like super transparent. Like everyone's like, so what you doing? What you doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And like listening, like, trying to listen in on what's happening. And it's because I want to be able to I'm not getting at this point, no information from leadership about what this means or like, if I stay, like, is there a guarantee that there's not going to be any more layoffs? So we had to really like pull on each other to try to have, more well-rounded, making a less emotional, but more, dang, the word's not coming to me.
Educated and
informed guess. There we go. Informed choice. So, going back and forth, and I'm like, this is a good reason to stay. This is a good reason to leave. And, a lot of people's worries, like I was talking about the layoffs, was that there's just so many people that are coming from similar jobs and similar companies that are going to be looking for a job. It's going to be hard to get. Very fair point.
Fair thought.
Very truthful point.
However,
when I thought about it, I'm like, somebody's going to be hiring somebody.
Yeah.
Like, there's jobs opened. And somebody's going to be hiring. So why can't I be the smart one they're hiring? Why not me? Like, instead of worrying about all these other smart people and how much they're, who else and how many people are going to be applying for something, why can't I be the smart person that they hire? So once I was able to tell myself this and believe that, I'm like, I'm out.
I got it.
And to be fair, look, it was not an easy decision. I'm a thug and I don't cry. But I had a meeting with my boss that day in a glass room. It was a virtual meeting. And I'm in this glass room bawling. It was so bad, I had to take a picture of myself afterwards because I was like, this is crazy. I'm out here crying over a job.
What is this?
So it was a hard decision.
But it was more than just a job.
Yeah, it was just a lot.
It's just basically what it represented. And then to have someone come in the way and
because I thought Twitter was going to be my job. Like, I thought this was like my 10-year job.
Flip
like,
everything
this
upside down.
It was that great. Like, the benefits were good. The pay was good. The people were good. Still didn't like what I necessarily did, but I saw there was other opportunities for me to move around to get to something closer to what I want to do. So I thought this was my 10 years. So I'm like, where the heck am I going to go? But once again, once I got over the fact that like, I'm gonna be that smart person that someone else is gonna hire.
That's right.
I did it. And of course, I also had, I saved money and I had some money there. So, knowing that when my check stopped, because we had like a grace period where we were still getting paid.
Do you think that if you didn't have
absolutely, I would not have quit.
You wouldn't have quit. Okay.
No way. No way. So that was another point of it. Like I was just in a financial space where if I didn't get a job by the time my Twitter check stopped running out, like I had money to back me up, even though of course I, didn't want to spend it. But if it came down to it, I would.
You had the option.
So yeah, I made that decision and I had a good Thanksgiving, Christmas, and I was, going home for vacation, things like that. But of course, I had to find a job. So it just so happened that a week before I left Twitter, he told us we had to be in the office 5 days a week. And I was like, not going to happen. I need to find a job.
Nobody's doing that anymore, guys.
So, and I didn't have a personal computer at the time. So I get this email, 3:00 in the morning, that I need to be in the office starting that day, which was a Thursday. Mind you, the next day we had off. So it was crazy. Anyways, don't have a personal computer.
A power move.
So I'm on the train ordering me a freaking computer because I was like, I need to start looking for jobs and I don't need nobody searching my computer looking because I don't want to be cut just because I was looking for jobs.
I'm out of here.
So,
but that's how wild it got.
Yeah. That's how wild I thought it was going to get. I don't know if it did or not because I was like, I ain't going to chance it. So, I get a computer. I go on LinkedIn. I start looking and I come across this company called Spring Hill Company and I've heard about them. Like, based out in LA.
Okay. And who owns Spring Hill?
It's a company. It's founded by Maverick Carter and LeBron James. So it's like their entertainment, sports. They're not an agency, but I've heard about them. They like merged together back in 2020, but everything was in LA. So I never saw anything in New York. Right. I see this job position come up, like it's me to a T, and it's in New York. I'm like, or it could be New York or LA. So I'm like, I am sending my resume, like it matches perfectly. I'm going to get the job.
It's me.
It's me. And it was like, I don't know if you guys have ever used LinkedIn, but companies could make it like easy apply where you can literally just submit your resume there.
Did you look to see how many people had applied?
Didn't care. So I sent my resume there, and the company can also set it up so that when they see your application, I'll get a notification saying like your application has been seen. Mm-hmm. So I send my resume. Next morning, I see my application has been seen. I'm like, I should be hearing back
any minute.
Right.
I'm gonna turn my ringer on.
Right. Don't hear nothing back from them. Following week happens. I quit Twitter. I am like, okay. So I go back to the job posting to see if it's still there. It's still active. So I'm like, ugh. And then I see that there's an option to reach out to the hiring manager. And I'm like, because I'm just a laid back, cool chick. She's seen it. Must not be a fit. I'm not going to be bothering her about me. Like, if it's for me, it's for me. And then I had a feeling, it was like, what's the harm? How, what happens if you, she gave you the option to email her.
That was an invitation.
That was an invitation. No, it wasn't specifically for me.
Guys,
but she wants. So I reached out and I basically sent through a cover letter, which I don't do unless I have to. So I basically took my cover letter and put it in there. I was like, hey, I applied for this position. These are the reasons why I think I'd be a good fit. It was like a Sunday night. So, I was desperate on a Sunday night. And Monday morning, I get an email like, hey, we want you to interview. And I'm like, looking back, like if I had not reached out to her, what would happen? I didn't even know that they were already in the thrust of, interviewing somebody else out in LA.
That instinct kicked in.
It kicked in. When it came down to it, luckily enough, they were able to hire, even though it wasn't one position, they hired me and another woman out in LA. So so now I'm at Spring Hill and I'm thankful to have a job. I had a job, prior to my checks running out of Twitter. So I, got to stash a little cash. Right. But it's all because, I'm just like, look, I have to bet on myself. No one's going to do this for you. Nope. Like it, my career definitely did start with people like my sister very much helped me out and putting me in the space and those doors. But because of the time that we're in and because the way, layoffs are happening left and right, like I had to not only say it, but believe it. Yep. And I didn't stress. Not one bit. I'm like, I'm going to find a job. Just so happy this time around was very easy. There wasn't a long interview process or anything like that. And there was some behind the scenes thing as far as trying to get approved for, to people to be hired. But I'm like, I need to believe in this. If it's going to happen, I need to believe it. If it's not going to be Spring Hill, it's going to be someplace else. So even when I was waiting on the offer for Spring Hill, I was still taking interviews because I'm like, if this don't pan out for whatever reason, I need to be in a position. Right. I can't be starting from scratch. Right. No more baby scratch.
Right. Baby scratch.
Baby scratch is gone. So so I just... Baby scratch is gone. Big shittery. That was it? Big shittery? That wasn't it.
No. I'll roll it.
You roll it back later. But bullshittery. There it is.
Bullshit. Big shittery.
Same. Put that on the list too. But so that's kind of how I got here. So I'm doing the same kind of things. I'm except it's more like custom content and things like that. Of course, it's around sports and entertainment. So back in my groove, it's very, yes, it's backed by big names, but it's startup-y. So meaning there's room. Definitely there's, things that, everyone's trying to figure out, how we're going to make this company us and not be like them and, figuring out how to work best together because the product itself is really great. So just figuring out how to make that work, which is great.
And because, when you say startup, how many employees is that? That could range from what to what?
The company's like 200 people. It's not necessarily about the people. It's more about how you're working. Okay. So you have to be a little bit more scrappy. You're piecing things together because you're still trying to figure out what process makes sense for your company. Okay. And you're having a lot of the people are coming from all these great different companies that had all these great processes. But you have to take that information and figure out how to make it work and make it very specific to, what it is that what our mission is and what we're trying to do. So the good part about that is, the bad part is can be considered you're trying to figure it out. So there isn't a solid thing. But the good thing is that you're able to pivot and switch and take advice from others in real time to, if something's not working, you're like, okay, this isn't working, so let's do it.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's kind of how we get there. So I, girl from Maryland, heard a radio show, thought she was going to be a publicist, went to school, made it to New York, had 50-11 jobs, and now I'm here and I'm still figuring it out and I'm still wondering what's going to be next. And I'm hoping, to be at Spring Hill for a very long time and see it grow. But if not, what's next? And maybe I'll never find out what that thing is, but maybe it's my career journey is to meet a lot of people and figure out how all this works and be able to help the next person and do all those things. So maybe one day I'll figure out, maybe not. But as long as these checks are coming in, I'm still going to be working.
So really quickly, explain to us what your current position is right now, where you are, and what exactly does that mean? What is your day-to-day?
So I'm at Spring Hill Company. I am a client solutions manager. And that's basically just a middleman to everybody, internally and externally. Okay. So when I'm talking externally, taking these briefs, like I mentioned, similar to Billboard, taking in these briefs and basically putting together plans that, meets the client's needs in order to hopefully convince them to advertise with us or use us. And internally, I'm getting, there's a marketing team, there's a pricing team, there's talent team, all these people that need to give me things to put into this deck that a seller goes and then presents. Okay. So it's me sitting down, having meetings, meeting these people and saying
the puzzle together,
pull it all together, wrap it up in a nice bowl, and then hand it off to a seller that goes out and then their gift for gab, which I don't have. They go on and use their charm to hopefully get, brands to advertise with us.
So how do you pick the pieces to pull together to send? Like, how do you know, is this a research-based thing? Like, okay, I'm going to use this person, how does this work?
Well, there's a team, everyone's special. We have a talent team. So when we are pitching certain ideas, I go to the talent team and saying hey, this is the idea. And, sometimes the client has specifics I want people of color, or I want LGBTQ, or I want a basketball player, or sometimes it's open-ended. So we give all that information from the brief to the talent team and says, hey, who do you think would be a good fit for this? And they can say, if it's an outdoor company, this player likes to fish, so this would be a good person to put in there. So you have a team that's specific to that. You have a team that specifically does come up with the idea. So they look at the brief and they say, this is the idea. So there's specific teams for certain things. You have a pricing team that now that we have this idea, how much it's going to cost. So I just bring all these people together to come up with it. And then they give me all the materials I need. And then I put it together in a deck, make sure it gets everybody internal's approval, and then send it to the seller so that they can go to the seller.
All right. Cool. So at this point in your career, would you say that you enjoy being on this side of the things? You said you worked for an agency and then you worked internally in, what was it? No.
I didn't work internally. I mean, all my jobs are internally.
No. So you said you've been on both sides.
Yeah.
So both sides. Explain to me the both sides again, and which side do you prefer?
So it's there's a couple sides, but you have publications. Those are your billboards, Complex, Condé Nast, where basically we're trying to get money from brands. Then you have the agency side. Most brands work with the agency, who's their middleman. So basically they tell their agency what they want, and then the agency reaches out to all these other publications to say this is what we want. And whoever can give them that is who gets the deal, basically. And then you have the brand. And the brand is one that's giving you all the nuggets, giving you the budgets, saying this is what we're trying to do, and all those things. So I worked on the publisher side of things and the agency side of things. Haven't worked on the brand side of things yet. But I enjoy the publication side of things, which is, even though Spring Hill's not publication, but it falls in that realm. Yeah, agency is very, very hard. It's a very hard place to be because you're trying to manage expectations on both ends. You have the client saying they need this now, and you're telling us we need it now, but we have things, we're working on 12 different things with 12 different agencies. Right. So that they go back and they'll be like, okay, well, can we get more time? So it's hard to be there. Okay. So I definitely enjoy the side of work that I've been on.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so we've heard about your journey thus far. Along the way, I am sure that you have experienced things not only on a professional level, but also on a personal level that have kind of made you either who you are or made you say, I'm never going to be that person. I think we've all had that.
I don't know if it's
yes or no.
No, I would say no. Like I said, I'm very much like I am who I am. You're gonna get what you're gonna get. But I've had moments where I'm just like, how did you get the job? Like that's more. Had more encounters with that than more so like me questioning what it is I'm doing. Like I was working at one job, and like at that job, I was pretty cool with my coworkers. Probably a set of cooler people. I don't know why we all just linked together, probably because we just hated the job so much that we bonded over like how much we hated the job.
Trauma buddies,
exactly. But so we would like, hang out outside of work, and not so much like linking up on the weekends, but like after work type of things, we would go and hang out. So one of my coworkers invited me and another coworker out to, her friend was in town. Her parents live at the Four Seasons residence. And at the time, I didn't even know Four Seasons had residences. But she was like, Four Seasons residency? I'm like, I'm going. So we went, and it was cool. And her friend was like very hospitable, and everything's great. And then they first started doing like whippets. It's like these little air canister things, gives you a little high. Not my thing. And my other coworker that I'm with is a guy, and he doesn't drink or do drugs of any type. So but he's always like the life of the party. Like I literally to this day thrive to be like him. High on life. Like so she asked, we do the whippets? And both of us like, nah, never. I never heard of it. And I'm just like, no, like that's not me. So we're cool. We're, I'm drinking. Everyone's drinking except
grown adults.
I mean, we were in our 20s, 25, 26. It's a thing, apparently. And then out of nowhere, like, she's like, hey, do you want to do some cocaine? Like, got some in the bathroom, you want to do some cocaine? And I'm just like...
She said that, like, I got an extra toothbrush in the bathroom.
Right. And then I'm just like, one, not to be funny, but I'm the only darker skinned person in the room. I already know him who's not black, but he don't drink or smoke or do anything. He's not going to do it.
You're not about to have my black ass.
I'm not going to do it. First of all, it's not my thing to begin with, but if that's what you do, that's your life. I have no judgment. But me personally, that's not what I do. And even if I did do it, you my coworker. But it's funny because in that moment, I did, of course, said no, and they did their business, and it was fine, or whatever the case may be. But for this specific job, for whatever reason,
were you like this?
I don't know what I was. I probably was like
just wait, like
I don't know what I hope it wasn't like that. But I would just
feel like the first time I saw somebody, I was like.
But it wasn't the first time I've ever heard anybody about it. I didn't realize we were as cool as we were, I guess. And then the second piece of it, right? The second piece of it is for this job specifically, we had to be drug tested. I don't know why. Like it had nothing to do. Like I don't work in medical. Like there's no reason for us to be drug tested, but we had to get drug tested. And when I was applying for a job, I don't smoke, but probably smoke like maybe twice a year. Just so happened before I had to take this drug test that I didn't know how to take. I had smoked weed like 11 days. And it was 11 days. I will never forget it. 11 days. I was Googling the shit out of how long does it take for weed to get out your system. And I realized I'm in the clear because I'm not an avid smoker. So, if you don't smoke as much, it gets out quicker. So, but I'm still shitting bullets waiting for this test to come back. So like a year later, so I'm like down here doing cocaine. And at this point, like I said, I've become close with my coworkers and some other coworkers. Like we've been around each other a lot enough to know like they share a lot. And I've heard people been on acid and cocaine. I'm like, how did y'all get this job? I was out here about to lose my shit over smoking weed 11 days before the test.
They went through withdrawal before they had to take the test.
But yeah,
there's no way.
That was a funny story that'll, never. And it just talks about dynamics of like, and it's not always about race, but just like things that I would, even if that was my lifestyle, or just even like things that aren't important that I would not share with my coworker, even if we're cool. Coming to like, I would never like, oh yeah, this weekend I was fucked up. Like, even though I knew this weekend I was fucked up.
Right.
But I'm not going to come in on Monday and say that where like, they
especially
just didn't
not
care.
With you, where circumstances are different.
Yeah. So that was just a funny story. I was just like, well, how'd you get this job?
How did you get here?
Yeah.
How did you get here?
Yeah.
I barely got here.
I thought I was going to be a goner. I thought my 11 days.
How did you get in here on a kite?
Yep.
Jeez. All right.
I really like for people to, in a sense, reflect really fast on their career and come up with something, or like if you had to give advice to the person that's coming behind you, 3 things or 1 to 3 things, I'll say that you wish you had have known then, or somebody would have said, if you do this will help you along the way. Like what are 1 to 3 things that you wish you would have known than what you know now about your career?
And I know it sounds cheesy, but like I wouldn't change anything because I feel like it helped me get to where I'm at. As far as my field is concerned, like college, I don't think could necessarily prepare me for what I'm doing now because I work in digital.
Right.
And we're talking in 2007 to 2011. And it just wasn't, it wasn't there. It wasn't even there to be taught. And there was nobody, knowledgeable enough in the moment to be able to teach me that. So as far as like college is concerned about learning more, don't think that there's anything necessarily I wish I would have known. But something that is happening now that I wish was around when I was, were all these different conferences, specifically catering to people of color, people that are working in entertainment, music, fashion, media, to show us that we are in that space. So like CultureCon's a big one. They have it in New York for 2 days in October. And they have it in June in LA. And it's just basically bringing in all these creative people that are like moving, shaking, panels, like put you in a space to ask people questions or just be around like-minded people to do it. And that just wasn't around when I was around. And even to this day, like it's something I haven't attended CultureCon, but I've heard great things. Hasn't worked out my schedule, but like I'm making it a point to go to the CultureCons. There's Add Color, that's out in LA. There's Afrotech, which is in Austin, Texas. So like these are the things that I wish were around at a bigger scale, that are now, open to people of color that want to be a part of it and know who's the who's, whether it's somebody you see on Instagram that you see doing big shit and they can able, do something like this, like tell their story and how they came to and network. So that's something that I wish was around when I was coming into this field. And then lastly, I think my biggest lesson is just bet on yourself. Like, and know yourself. So if you know you're not giving all that you can give, but expect your promotion, it's not going to happen.
Not happening.
Like do what's going to help you be a more well-rounded individual inside and outside of your career. Like that's the biggest thing I can say. Like bet on yourself. Believe in yourself, make the moves that are going to be right for you, because as we see in my story and many other people's stories, like when these people have to let go of people, whether it be good or bad, like sometimes not all layoffs are malicious. They have to make the decision and they can't care about what bills you have, your kids doing this, what vacation plans you had over here. Like they have to make decisions that are going to be best for the company. Once again, not necessarily maliciously, but because of whatever's happening in the company, they have to make moves. And you might be the one that unfortunately has to let go. So when we're making these career moves and
look at yourself as a business
and say like, what's best for me? And I used to worry about, when I leave, like what space is it going to leave this company in? And I have like Billboard, I gave them an extra week.
So nice. Because,
I enjoy my boss and things like that.
That matters though. That does matter.
But when you want to move and you want to ask for that raise or that promotion, and if it ain't happen, you got to go. Like you have to treat yourself like the business they are and make moves that make sense for you, because when they got to make moves that works for them, you might be caught in the crossfire. So bet on yourself. Be self-aware about your flaws and your strengths. Figure out what's going to help you do whatever it is you want to get through, and believe. And make it happen.
Gotta believe.
All right. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for being here for my very first episode.
You did it.
I'm Shaina Herrera.
And I'm Ashley AJ Johnson. And I've been Upfront with Shaina Herrera.
Till next time.
Bye, guys.